Hello, everyone. You know, there should be a word for the way your hand feels when you've been screwing in a whole bunch of screws and you get that feeling, that weird feeling in your hand and your wrist. There should be a word for that. Yeah, that's what I was doing yesterday, so that's why I'm tired today. But I want to cover this. This is another video about COVID, and this is from the LessWrong site. And it really echoes a lot of my frustrations. Now, this is a really long article. I'm not going to be going through the whole thing. There are couple of parts at the start and then in the middle that I want to hit. But man, just so many of my frustrations are in this article. How do you like it? So it's COVID-86, the case of the missing data. Testing. One could sum up the entire failure on COVID-19 as a failure of testing. We have failed to test individuals. We have failed to ramp up testing capacity fast enough. We have failed to deliver test results within the time frame necessary for them to stop the spread of the virus. We have failed to allow other forms of testing that could help us greatly. We have also failed to test everything else. We still don't know reliably how this virus is transmitted. We still don't know what actions are safe or risky. We don't know the right mask designs. Our knowledge of drugs work is spotty at best. We don't know how many people are actually immune or how that works. We don't know if our vaccines work. We don't know how people respond to different policies and options. We don't know almost anything. And that's really how I feel about it. I mean, masks are gonna help. That's obvious, but how much, and how much of it is, transmission through other means, They talk about the 6 feet, staying 6 feet from me. Okay, well, that helps, but how much of it is because you touch something and it does some of the other? There's just so many things about this that we don't know. So it says, the scariest part, this is the part that echoes how I feel. The scariest part of all of this is wondering whether this reduction in testing is on purpose. And it's a shame. I had hoped to focus on good news, but he runs the numbers. I'm not going to go through all the numbers. You can read this article yourself. But we were having a drop in the COVID-19 tests. And, when it looked like things were improving and we were getting better numbers, all of a sudden we're not getting better numbers anymore. But the part I really wanted to cover. All right, so this is about the testing and how many deaths are looking at this. Here we go. The $1 at home COVID tests. Yes. You've heard me talk about these. These have been available for a while. Why don't we do these? So the article says, this week I saw several renewed calls for cheap, plentiful at-home COVID-19 testing. The benefits of such a scheme are obvious. It's possible that the calls are the same every week, but that this week I happened to notice them more, / my thoughts were more about inadequate testing than usual. The result is the same. When I search, it seems the first news of such tests goes back several months, with plentiful tests. Okay, here we go. The FDA refuses to allow these tests until they are proven to be at least as accurate and good in every way as PCR tests. It seems they're almost as good and might be as good, but that's not good enough. The PCR tests cost several orders of magnitude more. They require taking a trip to see medical professionals, thus taking up a valuable resource and putting both yourself and others at risk of infection, and which are so overloaded that results can take weeks to get back to a person. This is transparently, obviously, a completely insane standard. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, maybe they don't work quite as good, but if we can do them at home and do them cheaply, and someone comes up and says, oh, well, I've got it, maybe then I ought to schedule a test, wouldn't that, if anything, let us make better use of those PCR tests, which are very limited? And like you said, it's just they're so behind, they can take weeks to get back to a person. By that time, the virus is running its course, and if you do have it and you are a problem, then you're already in the hospital, and that's crazy. So it says the correct response in a sane world would be that these tests are a hyper-efficient supply of very useful Bayesian evidence, and that would be the end of that. We don't live in anything like that world, so we need to break down exactly what would happen in practice. Yeah, so you've heard me talk about Bayesian inference before and how to do Bayesian statistics. So the idea is you take this test, and this test has a likelihood ratio. If the test comes back positive, then there's a certain chance that that's going to be a false positive. And you also need to consider the overall infection rate, in your area or your country or whatever. And if it comes back negative, you need to consider the same thing. But Bayesian data is kind of built up by more and more testing. I mean, first of all, if you can get the prior probability down as far as you can, how much of a risk are you just in general to get it, then you can get better results from that. But anyway, as many have pointed out, if these tests are not sufficiently specific or sensitive, we don't have to use them diagnostically, and that's the problem. The FDA is considering everything to be diagnostic. But we're not talking about using them diagnostically. We're just talking about as like an early warning system. It says if you get a positive strip test, you isolate, inform your contacts, and get a PCR test. If you get a negative strip test, you don't isolate without symptoms. You still get a PCR test if you are a high enough priority that you would have gotten one anyway. That's it. That's the rule. That's simple. That's obvious. And they just won't do it. The whole idea is to allow a large percentage of those who are infectious to isolate and find a better population on which to use your PCR tests, trading marginal cases for those who have a positive strip test. You shift costly risk avoidance behaviors away from people with less risk towards people with higher risk. Exactly what I've been saying to do all along. You shift PCR testing from people at lower risk to people at higher risk. If the FDA or anyone else is concerned that these tests will mess up the statistics, fine. Don't count them in the official testing statistics. Except, of course, it will be better to gather them as their own statistics and aggregate them to faster and more accurately find places with rising number of cases. An office with enough positive strip tests could shut down. So could a school. With that possibility, a school or office that for now has to remain closed could instead open. Again, exactly as I've been saying. How is this not freaking obvious? Instead, we continue to ban cheap Bayesian evidence whose central practical use case is obviously immensely helpful in multiple ways. Given how close we are to R null equals 1, and that's where the point where every person goes on to infect one other person and you flatten the curve. We could likely stop this virus in its tracks quickly using this strategy alone, if combined with what we're already doing. All we would have to do is get a substantial fraction of infectious people to isolate more, even if we miss a lot of people, and those who do isolate are not fully successful at doing that. So, yeah, this is just such a beautiful write-up on it. And he goes into some other cases about, I think, baseball and football. I'm not a sports guy. And let's see what else is there. And I don't think I'm going to read over this last part either, but it's a good one if you want to read it. If you don't want to look over the other things, he's talking about the vaccinations in Russia, that they're going to try to do them as early as October. And that's a good thing because it'll give us early data on how well these vaccines work. But he also mentions that it might backfire and make the anti-vaxxers go, see, vaccines don't work. And, if it ends up in people's minds, making it so they think that a vaccine isn't going to be worth it, that would be bad. So he goes into a little bit of analysis of that. So, I mean, this is a really good write-up. It's a really good website. I love this website. But, yeah, I think that's basically all I wanted to talk about on this one. So thank you very much for watching. As usual, hit like, subscribe, and the bell. Hey, do you like my new glasses? I got these new computer glasses. Wow, it is just like getting a new computer monitor. These are the ones that kind of flatten everything out so that my prescription doesn't make it look like I'm looking through a fishbowl. The monitor looks better and clearer and everything. I got these from Firmoo, Firmoo. This is not a paid endorsement, but if you go to firmoo.bogosity.tv, that's my affiliate link. And if you buy something there, I'll get a little bit of change from that. So, I just like letting you people know that when I read out those affiliates, yes, I am endorsing the product. I do use them. I've got several pair of glasses from Firmoo, and I just love them. So that's one way you can help. Another way is to go to donate.bogosity.tv, and you can donate through PayPal, or you can donate cryptocurrency. Just a few pennies helps. It always does. Or be a regular at Patreon and Subscribestar. Get these videos early and ad-free. Above all, just share this around, though, because that helps more than anything. Everywhere you are, every forum, website comments, every Discord server, wherever you can, wherever you think it's relevant. If you've got something to say, hey, I can add this to the discussion. If they're talking about these COVID testing, pop this one right in there. Let them see it and let them go to this article and get all this good information. Thank you so very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.